now. Okay, so just continuing from where we were, I wanted to ask you how, I mean, you've been working on this for 10 years, right? For you to achieve these types of things in 10 years, there must be some special magic sauce in my mind. Perhaps I'm wrong. I would love to learn a bit more about your entrepreneurial journey through this. I mean, you started off probably quite young when you started the first business, and then you pivoted to two more without stopping the work that was happening on the first company or the second company, right? How do you achieve all this while also fighting for longevity without stressing yourself to death?
Yeah. Well, I try to do a couple of things in parallel, and they're all kind of synergistic. The young blood infusions help a lot too. Just kidding. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much all I've done. It's all that I know professionally, longevity biotech and venture. So yeah, there's a lot of synergy between them. Once you've started one company, it gets a little bit easier to start the next one. But it's always fairly stressful, especially depending on market conditions. In the last couple of years, there's been not very much capital, but the longevity theme continues to rise in interest. And I can't imagine a world in which we become less interested in longevity as the science, the evidence continues to build. So I think we're on this one-way trajectory toward greater and greater importance of longevity biotech in the medical system and just awareness in the general population. So in a couple decades, hopefully the type of medicine that we're all getting is primarily longevity medicine, drugs that slow the aging process and reverse the damage of aging, because most medicine today is treating the symptoms of disease rather than the root causes. And the root cause for most of the most common diseases, it's aging itself, and we can actually slow it down and hopefully in the near future reverse it.
And you said 10 years until some of these treatments are in the market. Only 10 years, less than 10 years, more than 10 years?
Yeah, so there are already some geroprotective pro-longevity drugs and supplements that are widely available and widely used. Rapamycin is well known, acarbose, the SGLT2 inhibitors. A lot of those are metabolic regulators, so sensitization to insulin and getting rid of excess blood sugar, that kind of thing. And then a whole lot of supplements as well. So there's stuff you can do today. But really the drugs that will have a lot of strong clinical evidence are in the pipeline right now. So companies like those launched by Apollo, those funded by HealthSpan Capital, the assets at Cambrian, the assets at BioAge, and other similar companies, those will have robust data packages so that we'll know the safety and efficacy in multiple different diseases and ultimately in aging itself. So for these drugs that are very well established, that'll probably take another 5 years or so before we start to have several of them. But we may have the first couple in the next 2 or 3 years as they proceed in the clinic.
Got it. That was actually one of my questions for you, right? You talk about rapamycin and a couple of other substances that have shown to have clinical impact on aging. But from my understanding, and perhaps I'm wrong, I can't do these in Europe or in the States easily. There might be limitations to this. Is that true? And where would someone go to facilitate such treatments for themselves?
Sure. So actually, in some European countries, you can get rapamycin, acarbose, these generic drugs relatively easily and cheaply. So that's cool. But we also have jurisdictions where we're trying to accelerate the pace of biomedical advancement. One that we're sitting in right now is Prospera, with a gathering here called Vitalia. And Vitalia is aiming to create a community here in Prospera, but also globally, for people who are really motivated to work on longevity biotech, regenerative medicine, and everything about the future of medicine. So we've had a series of conferences here, some of the world-leading experts in longevity biotech, and as well as other fields like AI and startup cities, crypto, all hanging out here with us. And we're going to continue to do this here and all over the world in partnership with Zuzalu, which is a sort of philosophical sister organization. So in certain jurisdictions, there are a lot of barriers to getting new drugs approved quickly and cost efficiently. And a lot of this is arcane, unnecessary bureaucracy. There are no shortage of patients who want to try a new drug that might save their lives or massively improve their lives. But there's an extreme amount of cost imposed on the companies or nonprofit groups that want to test these new therapies in people. And so if you go to other places in the world, you can go to Japan, where they have a very permissive stem cell environment. UAE, Montana in the US has the Right to Try initiative, which is new and was actually incentivized by a longevity organization, lobbying group. So we're starting to see progress in this jurisdictional arbitrage world. And there has been in the regenerative medicine and stem cell field for some decades now, that kind of jurisdiction arbitrage, where there are excellent clinics in, Switzerland or Panama or, Japan, and they're providing therapies that are not available to Americans and to many Europeans as well. So it's just kind of crazy that Americans and Europeans think we're living in, the most developed countries with the most freedom and the most advanced products and services, but it's actually not the case. Elsewhere in the world, there are more advanced forms of medicine that are currently expensive because it's new and not covered by most insurance. But if you have, a serious injury, like a joint injury, the regenerative medicine stem cell therapy has worked better than anything that I've ever seen by far, and with almost no side effects. And yet, for some reason, it's not widely available in the US, because we know the reason. It's these insane thicket of regulations, just like in every industry.
So you believe that we will have medical trials happening in Prospera?
Yeah, in fact, so we already have some trials, clinical trials occurring in Prospera. There was a mini-circle gene therapy trial with follistatin. There's another study going on with a company doing a cancer therapy. And so, we're starting to get more and more interest in running clinical trials here, because we have our own IRB, Institutional Review Board, as well as our own clinical trial capacity, and a clinic that's been operating here for many years, led by a world-leading orthopedic surgeon, Glenn Terry, who was on the board of the Olympics Medical Committee, the sports games. So we have all of the pieces in place to run clinical trials here, faster and cheaper than many other parts of the world.
Without losing the scientific rigor.
Yeah, it's just as rigorous. We hold ourselves to the same standards as FDA or EMA, just without the unnecessary components of their regulations and the fees and the millions of dollars that you have to pay to regulatory consultants and to the regulators themselves. You have to pay them millions of dollars in fees.
Fantastic. One question that might be a bit more competitive. Over the past few days, talking to the experts that have come here from Vitalia, some feel like pharmaceutical, specifically drugs, are too blunt of a force to deal with legitimate epigenetic issues that lead to aging, and therefore won't solve aging permanently. Perhaps expand life and life quality by 10, 20 years at best, but won't make us immortal, which is something that has been pushed for by the community. Do you agree with this? Do you disagree with this?
Yeah, well, we've got to start somewhere, and we can start with the therapeutic modalities that are already in use. So small molecules like pills, which have been the standard of medicine for a century or more. Biologics, so antibodies, peptides, that have been really very important medicines since around the 1990s. We'll also have cell therapies becoming very popular. There are already a handful of approved cell therapies that can be absolute game changers, can save people's lives in the cancer field, like T-cell therapy, and also ex vivo engineering of these cells, like genetically engineered hematopoietic stem cells in the bone marrow that can cure diseases like sickle cell anemia and inherited blood diseases. Those have just been approved just in the last year. So, and then the next leg of that journey is gene therapy, which can be extremely powerful, but it is held back, inhibited by the gene therapy delivery problem. That the current vectors, which are mostly viral vectors, don't deliver the genetic material to enough cells in the body or to the desired cells in the body. So targeting is hard. So those are the modalities that we currently have available. And there's a lot of alpha, a lot of chips left on the table for us to benefit from them. But
Specifically through your venture studio, venture capital firm as well, right? You seem to be investing in a very good time where interest is at all-time highs in this field, which is fascinating.
yeah, the interest seems to keep building. And so I don't see it declining anytime soon. But to address the question about are we not being ambitious enough, there are people who are extremely ambitious, ideas about growing whole organs ex vivo outside of the body. We are making progress on that front in relatively simple organs. And so eventually there may come a day that we could grow complex organs outside of the body for transplant, young organs, as well as all kinds of other interesting areas like embryo selection, where we can actually select the babies that we will have that are the healthiest possible or the happiest or whatever properties we're interested in. So immortality, physical immortality, it's possible on a physical biological level. We know that cells can be immortal because of germline immortality. But we're a ways off from unlocking that capability in the whole body. But in our lifetimes, within the next 50 to say 100 years, I think we will crack a lot of those problems. So the probability that you or I could live for hundreds of years or indefinitely, achieving what Aubrey de Grey calls longevity escape velocity, I'd say greater than 50% odds based on what I'm seeing right now.
So this is the last question that I want to ask you. There's a lot more that we can talk about, of course, but you are an investor in this space, you're an entrepreneur in this space, but is money your core driving force behind what you've been doing here? It doesn't seem like it. Why are you in longevity tech and biotech?
Yeah, money is nice, but there are some things that you cannot buy.
Time.
Time being chief among them. Yeah, so we have billionaire friends in the network. And if you're a billionaire, you can buy most everything except for a couple things. As the Beatles said, as they sang, you can't buy true love, right? In fact, if you're a billionaire, it's probably harder to know who truly loves you or even likes you. You can't buy sovereign state power, so it doesn't matter if you're the wealthiest billionaire. If some government wants to come after you, you're in trouble. So you need protection of some sovereign state. And you can't buy extended healthy lifespan. You can buy, the private chefs for the good cooking, and you can go to yoga every day, and you can take all the supplements and all the drugs. And that can probably get another 20, 30% extended healthy lifespan. But no amount of money currently can buy another couple decades or century. And if I were a billionaire, I would spend 99% of my money invested in longevity biotech and advanced medicines, because what benefits you as an individual will benefit everybody on Earth, right? The medicines, once we've unlocked the mechanisms of action, once we know how they work, it's almost infinitely reproducible. So the whole world can benefit. And there are huge economic benefits to that too. So a world with less illness, with less disease is much more productive, happier, and it will alleviate some of the pressure that governments currently face on the sort of Ponzi pyramid scheme nature of their current systems. So they're not able to pay for the silver tsunami, the global demographic aging crisis that is unfolding right now. Too many older people, not enough young people who who pay the taxes to support those older people. So I often say that the silver tsunami is the greatest threat to national security and global security, because it's guaranteed to happen. So there's nothing you can do to change the demographic pyramid as of right now. We're going to have a lot of old people who need to be taken care of, and they're going to be sick for a long time. So if we had longevity and regenerative medicine where they were able to live longer in good health, they would be more productive, and it would alleviate a lot of these economic pressures. And a lot of people are committing their lives to, say, climate change or like international war making. And, they may be threats, but their degree of threat is uncertain, right? But with demographic aging, we know very well what's going to happen. We know that the population is going to age, and the economic system on which many countries are built is going to crumble. And there will be inflation, and there will be a lot of civil unrest if we don't have better medicine, basically. So,
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Sebastian.
yeah,
Thank you very much for your insights. I do hope you become a billionaire so you can pay for all those things.
me
So that
too.
help all of us. So I guess it's a win-win. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.